Welcome back. It is time for Chapter 7. As I mentioned back in Chapter 6, this is one of my favorite chapters of all time that I've ever written. And of course, I completely forgot about it until I got to this point. And see, I still keep looking over here, like the camera's here, like it's there. It's over here, over there. I need to, obviously I wasn't made for television, apparently. So anyway, Chapter 7 is when then Corporal Stokes meets Andy. And this is, who knows, maybe some of you guys that are in the military understand checking into a new unit. And it can be nerve-wracking, you know, you don't know anybody. Typically, you get there later at night if you're smart. You don't want to get there too early in the day. There's a whole other reason for that. But, you know, you've got your orders and you're dressed up in, you know, I don't know, depending on what your unit you're going to, a certain uniform. And usually you are checking into whoever is on duty. At least that's how it was in my time and my experience, the couple units that I checked into. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on to Chapter 7, simply titled Andy. Corporal Stokes sat at the duty desk, counting down the minutes to midnight. This was the much-loved 24-hour duty on a prime Friday night in July. He had a list of junior officers that were supposed to report into the battalion from the infantry officers course by 2359. All of the four reported in at various times during the day except one, a second lieutenant Bartholomew Andrews. Bartholomew, huh? Probably some Naval Academy weenie. Sorry to you, Naval Academy weenies. Yes, my father and my grandfather both went there. The gunnery sergeant assigned as the duty officer was a real prick and wanted to be woken up as soon as each officer reported in. It didn't have to be that way, but this particular gunny, a gunnery sergeant Reamer, got a kick out of giving young officers grief when they reported in. Cal knew why, too. The prick had been dumped by 2 company commanders for doing a shitty job as company gunny. Now he was assigned to the S3 shop, that's operations, as some assistant to the assistant's assistant. Basically, the battalion staff was biding its time until they could dump the waste of space onto another battalion or get him kicked out of the Corps altogether. Reamer loved to abuse any power granted to him by the Marine Corps, even the limited power of the officer of the day. Guys like that tend to relish OOD duty as their time to shine. He'd seen the guy earlier that week, pacing before 2 unfortunate new arrivals like a rooster with a hard-on. He shoved his pecking beak into one poor officer's face. "Lieutenant, where are your written orders?" He liked to say lieutenant like it was some obscenity he'd been whipped for in Catholic school. In my car," the poor guy was shaking. "In your car?" screamed the gunny. "Is your car pulling duty now, Lieutenant?" "No, gunnery sergeant." The young officer was bubbling with unease now. "You are to carry your written orders at all times like they're nailed to your chest. You understand, Lieutenant?" "Yes, gunnery sergeant." There was a slight whine in the officer's tone now, like a banshee who'd lost its voice. "Yes, so you agree with me?" "Yes, gunnery sergeant." "Then why don't you have them with you?" The officer's jaw jittered for a moment. I what? You gonna start giving me a bunch of excuses, Lieutenant?" "No, gunnery sergeant." "Here's what I need, what the Marine Corps needs. I need you to sprint back to your car right now. You understand, Lieutenant?" "Yes, gunnery sergeant." "I want you to run like the devil himself is about to rape your mama and bring me back those written orders, Lieutenant." "Yes, gunnery sergeant." "You think you're special, Lieutenant, because the Corps doesn't have room for special cases." "No, gunnery sergeant." "You think you don't need written orders?" "No, gunnery sergeant." "I want you back here in under 2 minutes, or I will call the battalion commander and let him deal with you." It was said conversationally, like Reamer didn't care, but the threat was as plain as the grass is green. After this lovely exchange, the officer turned and ran. Cal saw the smirk appear on Reamer's smug, self-satisfied face. Then the prick actually laughed out loud. Cal wasn't looking forward to the last guy, Andrews, getting there. The second lieutenant had 10 more minutes. It was also obvious that the gunny was saving the best for last. "Bartholomew," the gunny sneered to Cal. Anyone with a name like that is just begging to get messed with." No, Bartholomew wasn't Cal's first choice to name a kid, but at least he had the decency to keep that fact to himself and not make it the justification for some petty abuse to make himself feel like he had a pair. At 5 minutes before midnight, Second Lieutenant Andrews walked into the duty shack with his orders ready. He looked squared away and fairly at ease. Most new Marines, Cal had seen checking in to their first unit tended to be more than a little nervous. This young officer didn't seem to have that problem. "Checking in, Corporal." Cal looked up at him. "Roger that, sir. If I can get your orders, I've got to go get the duty officer to get you logged in." "No problem." Corporal Stokes got up and walked smartly into the next room, which was used for the duty officer and his clerks as a sleeping area. Hey, Gunny, that last lieutenant just walked in." Reamer opened his eyes with what looked like a mixture of disdain and excitement. "Yep, he was going to give the new guy some kind of shit, all right." Cal waited as the gunny took his time putting his utility blouse back on and donned his web belt with pistol. Corporal Stokes was surprised the guy could even fit into any issued gear. The gunny's belly gave his buttons a workout. Finally ready, Cal followed Reamer back into the duty shack. Not 2 steps through the door, the gunny started in. "You Lieutenant Andrews?" "That's me, Gunny," Andy said. "Just checking in." "I'd appreciate it if you called me Gunnery Sergeant, sir." That was one of Reamer's favorite lines, getting the young officers off balance from the get-go. "Sorry, Gunnery Sergeant, didn't mean any disrespect." Lieutenant Andrews responded without the obligatory flush of embarrassment. Cal couldn't yet put his finger on it, but he didn't think the baby-faced butter bar was even close to being a candy ass. "Says you're supposed to report in by 23:59, Lieutenant. It's now 0002. Andy nodded towards Cal. "As I'm sure Corporal Stokes will tell you, I stepped in and reported in at 23:55. The gunny smirked. "Well, sir, that's not really my concern. The point is, when I put you in the logbook, you'll be reporting in late. Hell of a way to start your tour with this fine battalion." Just then, Cal caught the look of cold anger flash across the eyes of the young officer. Then, just like that, it was gone. This guy was no candy ass. Even gives me shivers right now. From the look on Reamer's face, it was obvious he'd missed the warning sign. Cal decided to step in. "Hey, Gunny, the lieutenant's right. He checked in right at 23:55. I wrote it right here in my own log." "You shut your mouth, Corporal," Reamer snapped. "Looks like you'll have to come back tomorrow morning to meet with the battalion XO, sir. He likes to come in Saturday morning and check in with the OD to see who fucked up the night before." Surprisingly, Lieutenant Andrews still stood in front of the duty desk with a look of complete calm. "Okay, Gunnery Sergeant, why don't you just pick up that phone and call the XO right now? If I'm going to get my ass chewed, I'd rather not wait until tomorrow." Visibly confused, Reamer paused to think about this most unexpected request. Calling the executive officer would put his ass in a crack, and he was all about keeping his ass out of cracks, no matter whom he had to blame to take the fall for him. Reamer's voice became condescendingly soothing. "Well, Lieutenant, I don't think it's appropriate to call the XO at this hour. Why don't you just come back in the morning and I'm sure everything will be fine." "I think I'll take my chances, Gunnery Sergeant. Why don't you give me his number and I'll call him right now on my handy-dandy cell phone?" The corner of Reamer's mouth twitched, barely imperceptibly. He was starting to lose his patience. "Now, sir, that's really not how things are done around here." Andy's voice was suddenly commanding. "Well then, how are they done around here, Gunnery Sergeant? It's obvious you get your rocks off shitting on us new guys. Get the damn XO on the phone and we'll get this done now." The placid demeanor had evaporated, and a look of calm fury now radiated from the young officer's face. And by the look on Reamer's face, the shipbird gunny was finally getting the point. He'd messed with the wrong guy. He could either back down or push forward. Cal hoped he'd pick the first option. The gunny sneered in Andy's direction. "Now, look here, Lieutenant. I don't appreciate—" "Get on your feet, Marine," Andy bellowed. "You stand at attention when you talk to me, Gunnery Sergeant." It therefore came as a complete surprise to Cal when the gunny jumped out of his seat and popped to attention. Holy shit. What was going on? "Now, as I see it," said Andy, "you have 2 choices. Number 1, you log me in as reporting in at 23:55. Number 2, you get the battalion XO on the phone right now and he can resolve the issue. What's it going to be, Gunnery Sergeant?" Reamer stammered as he answered the other man. "I'm just trying to do things by the book, but I think we can trust your word that you reported in at that time." "Sir." "Excuse me?" "I said you call me sir," Andy said. I'm only asking for the same respect you so kindly asked of me. Yes, sir, the gunny said. All right, let's get this done so Corporal Stokes can get some rack time. He's looking a little sickly. As Reamer leaned over to begin his entry in the duty logbook, Lieutenant Andrews gave Cal a quick wink and a mischievous half smile. It was the same smile he'd see years later on the side of some god-forsaken mountain in Afghanistan as he and Lieutenant Andrews prepared to rush an enemy position by themselves. And it was that first meeting and the look at that young officer's eyes that made Corporal Stokes think he never wanted to get on the officer's bad side. So there we go. We meet Andy. The chapter's not over, so don't go anywhere. But yeah, checking in. Maybe that's what I should have named the chapter, checking in. So let's go to the next part of chapter 7. Vanderbilt University Hospital, Nashville, Tennessee. The bedside phone rang again a couple minutes later. Cal picked it up on the first ring. Stokes. It was Brian. Cal, I've got Captain Andrews on the phone again. Put him through. You there, Stokes? Andy said. Yes, sir. I got some info on your corpsman. Cal shifted into a more comfortable position. What'd you find? Says here that he served with 1-2 during the initial invasion of Iraq. He got to be part of that big mess in Nasiriyah. Hold on a minute. Cal heard mouse clicks on the other end. Well, well, said Andy. Looks like you've got yourself a brother there, Marine. What do you mean? This record says that Hospital Corpsman First Class Brian Ramirez is a multiple award winner. Won a Bronze Star in Iraq, then a Silver Star in Afghanistan. The first was for dragging some of his Marines out of a burning AAV. Says he got pretty bad burns himself. The Silver Star citation said this kid not only saved 10 of his Marines' lives, but that he also took a couple M16s and killed a few bad guys. No shit? No shit. Impressive. Well, at least I know now. Need anything else? Andy asked. Unless you can get me out of here, I guess I'm good. Well, wish I could, buddy. I'll be in touch. The line went dead. Cal replaced the receiver and laid back in his bed. So, Brian was a warrior. Interesting. A few minutes later, Doc Ramirez came in to check on Cal. What do you want for dinner tonight? Brian asked. You didn't tell me about your bronze and silver stars. Brian quirked an eyebrow. You didn't tell me about your Navy Cross. Fair enough. I'd give that thing back just to have my guys alive right now. Me too. Now, what do you want for dinner? Chicken or mystery meat? Cal snorted. I'll take the chicken. As Brian nodded and left the room, Cal thought about the quick conversation. It was rare to find a medal recipient who bragged about their award. Most just wanted to be left alone. He'd seen guys give their medals away as soon as they received them, rather than once again reliving the memory of their dying comrades. Tongue twister. Funny that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, but the true heroes are almost always silent about their accolades. Brian returned, balancing a cafeteria tray with a domed cover. The faint smell of roasted chicken wafted towards Cal. Hey, Doc, wondering if you could do me a favor. Brian set the meal down on the table next to Cal. What's that? I was wondering if you could swing by my place on your way home and pick up a couple things for me. You have a place here in Nashville? Yeah, I got a little condo down in the Gulch. Sure, no problem. You got your keys? You actually won't need any. There are 2 keypads, one at the building entrance and one at my unit. I'll just give you the codes. Ooh, fancy. What are you, some rich kid? A brief look of anger passed Cal's eyes and Brian backtracked. Did I say something wrong? Cal shook his head. Don't worry about it. Can you run by there tonight? No problem. I get off at 7. I'll run by after that. What do you need me to pick up? Call me when you get there and I'll walk you through it. Won't be easy to find without me telling you. Brian's eyebrow rose. What was this Marine having him deliver? He'd find out soon enough. He was pretty sure he could trust Cal Stokes. So, longer chapters there, or chapter with some sections. As anybody who's been with me for a while, as I've written more, my chapters have gotten shorter and shorter, more in a kind of a James Patterson style. Look at me, still looking over here. See, I need a class. But as I've gotten further in my writing career, I write shorter chapters just because it tends to move along quicker. So anyway, hopefully you like that chapter. It is one of my favorites. I always like tripping on it when I have to read back through my old works. And let's move on to the next chapter. And don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.